Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily. Coming up, we got Denver and Oklahoma City Part 2. We got the Suns and the Grizzlies going down to the wire, and we check in on the Sacramento Kings with our friend Matt George from Locked On Kings. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, S.
Morning.
We got another good basketball game in Oklahoma City last night between the Nuggets and the Thunder. And
the sequel,
The sequel, right?
Godfather 2, right? Terminator
it's not
2?
Electric Boogaloo. I know that.
Okay.
Although it was a shocking result if you were the Oklahoma City Thunder and their fans, because the Nuggets just shot the lights out. And, basically the Thunder just couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
The Nuggets shoot 56% from three. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Look, it's always a great game when Peyton Watson goes 4-4 from three.
Yes.
Jalen Pickett knocks down 2 of 3. So, the Nuggets were just hitting on all cylinders, which is part of this equation of them dropping 140 on the best defense in the NBA. I think from the Nuggets, you can take away the fact that Jamal Murray was awesome in this game. He poured in 34 points on 50% shooting, was just really effective in the non-Jokic minutes, is something that should be highlighted. We talked about how their bench is starting to figure things out, and I think Murray is a huge part of that equation because he's been in rhythm recently. So that's one aspect. And then for OKC, losing J-Dub in the second half was massive. Just no one else other than Shai that could really get things going for them offensively.
Yeah, we should talk about Jokic because as you kind of glossed over a little bit, it's a big development. This is 2 games in a row where the Denver bench has held up pretty well when he was on the bench against the Thunder. Obviously, they fell apart in game 1 when he was on the bench, but game 2, they did much better. But Jokic, pedestrian, 35, 18 rebounds, 8 assists. And we don't even mention that at the top, S. This guy is insane.
It's regular. Yeah.
Did he win the MVP tonight? No.
No.
but truly, he did. I mean, so this is what we're kind of talking about in this MVP race, right? Between these 2 guys. Denver threw everything it had. And look, every team does this to Jokic every single night. But Denver especially, I thought, went over the top, just throwing the double at Shai every single time. Anybody but Shai was going to beat him. And then when J-Dub was out, you had there was this thing where it's just like, oh, they didn't have another creator out there. So they essentially just had to take the look.
Yeah. How do you solve that?
Nothing was falling. Yeah. I mean, well, the thing is, they still hit 40% of their threes. Yeah. But down the stretch, nothing would fall. Now, the solution is, I'm sure that they have a counter. I think you get Shai moving off the ball, right? Get him going downhill.
That's the interesting thing. It's were the Thunder holding stuff back a little bit? Both these teams were, right? Yeah. Because they know they might end up facing off in May. And so you don't want to show off all the cards, show off all the options that you have. I think with Shai, the double team stuff is something more teams are doing often. It's not just Denver that's doing it, but they're trying to send 2 to the ball, force the ball out of his hands. It's what everybody does against Jokic, at this point too. Best players in the league are going to get those type of attention. I think the curious thing I have moving forward with SGA and just OKC in general is all right, cool. You have this egalitarian offensive system where everybody else can kind of contribute on any given night. You have Aaron Wiggins popping off. You have Chet. You have other guys. Hartenstein was great in this game to start. Is that going to be enough when maybe J-Dub doesn't have a great game for you in the playoff series, right? Is that going to be enough for you to pull out wins? That's the next question with this Thunder team.
Yeah. I hope we get this matchup in the playoffs.
I really hope so too. This needs to be the Western Conference Finals. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta say this. Chet guarding Jokic one-on-one, he did an okay job. I mean, he's given up a lot of weight there. Thought he did an okay job. The thing that he's got to be better at is he needs to anticipate what Jokic is going to do after he attempts the shot. And that's tough to do because Jokic is always looking to maneuver, sometimes to get his own rebound. Sometimes he's just making a pass to himself, I'm convinced, by missing a shot. And so Jokic being able to beat him to a couple spots surprised me a little bit because you'd think, well, Chet and his activity, he would be able to keep up.
But I like Hartenstein as the primary assignment on Jokic, and then you have Chet as the help side guy with his length and whatnot. I think that's what worked. When they played very early in this season and OKC won the game in Denver and Chet was incredible. That's how Chet maximized his game offensively. I think that's the way to go. Again, I need to see this in a playoff series, man.
Yeah, just to see the adjustments. The Grizzlies held off the Suns for. This was a much needed win for the Grizzlies. I don't want to act like it isn't. Jaren Jackson's out. They lost 4 straight games or 3 straight games with on a game winner. The Suns were coming back in this one. Kevin Durant had a look at a game winner from dead on straight ahead 3, and he
terrible
just missed it.
Inbound pass by Desmond Bane to lose it and give the Suns that opportunity too.
Awful down the stretch again for the Grizzlies. But who wasn't awful for them is Ja Morant. Ja Morant put up 29. His ability to get 2 feet into the paint. That was what put this game away. Down the stretch, he was just, I'm going to put you in a blender. I'm going to the hole every single time. And now your defense has to stop us.
What defense? No, I'm just kidding. Look, no, the Suns are like that. They're going to get guards who just cook them. And that's kind of part of the equation when you're facing the Suns. Ja Morant, a quick guard like that, is just going to get whatever he wants. The thing that jumped out to me with Ja's game was the 12 assists. And you talked about getting into the paint. It was get to the paint, generate threes for guys who can knock down shots. And that's kind of the name of the game. The interesting thing about this game and them playing without Jaren is they're leaning into the Ja pick and roll more.
It's much more like it used to be.
It's much more like it used to be. It's not like it was before, where obviously they're playing a different style and they're at the bottom of the league in terms of pick and roll frequency. Right. I would imagine that's gone up a little bit now that Jaren's, hurt and sidelined. Well, I think they're just leaning into what Ja can do.
I mean, this also was one of the best games Ja's had in a while. I mean, it has been a minute. He's been struggling, and maybe that's the system. I don't know. I think that the great players know how to play. Sure. I just think he's going through a rough stretch, but this was probably what he needed to see from this game. Also, we gotta talk about this. There's a certain level of player, in my opinion, that you need to be to trash talk an all-time great like Kevin Durant.
So you took issue with Cam Spencer.
I'm not taking issue, but I'm just saying Cam Spencer felt like last night he was on that level, and I just never really seen a guy give it to Kevin Durant as intensely as Cam Spencer would. I mean, he was just every single time he was barking with him.
Before he was barking with him all game, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the third quarter, he knocked down a corner 3. Cam Spencer, by the way, had a really good game. This is the 53rd overall pick for the Grizzlies. Another gem the Grizzlies have found in the draft, a guy who can score. He put up 50 in the G League earlier I think it was in January, he dropped 50. So look, this is a guy who can do a lot of things, but in that third quarter, he hit a corner 3, buzzer goes, he just starts trash talking KD. And this is a guy who already has gotten into a little bit of a beef with the Suns team. He was trash talking Devin Booker a few months ago too. I don't know if it's something against Phoenix. I have no idea. But
who had the 52nd pick? Did they not take him with the 52nd pick? And
maybe there you go. Conspiracy theory, Dave. Let's do it.
I don't know. I got a question for the Suns. Okay, number one, look, the Suns, I guess, are still trying to make the play-in. How come Nick Richards is only playing 20 minutes in this game? I mean, he was incredibly productive in the 20 minutes, 10 points, had 12 rebounds, had a couple assists. I mean, he makes their defense better just by being on the court. His presence. I can't figure it out. What's the deal
going on? Yeah. I mean, you could ask that about a lot of things happening with the Suns. Truthfully, I think there are more solutions to that team defensively than they're putting out on a night-to-night basis.
Ryan Dunn can't get off the bench.
Oso Ighodaro can't get off the bench.
Right. And these guys were key contributors early on in the year. I mean, this Suns team went from, okay, hey, look, it's not working out, but look at all these good young guys you've got, to what is happening
I don't know.
With the rotation. Bol plays 17 minutes. This is a team that doesn't have any other center.
Right. Yeah,
I'm very confused.
You're baffled by it. Yeah. And look, this is a team that's also fighting with the Mavericks, who don't have Kyrie or AD, basically anybody, for that final play-in spot. And
Mavericks won last night.
And the Mavericks won last night against the Spurs. So they are the more talented team given the injuries for the Mavericks. They should be winning these games. Now, they do have a really hard schedule moving forward, which is part of this process. But it just doesn't feel like they're pushing the right buttons right now. It's brutal.
Yeah. And before we go to break, got to talk about the Lakers because I think that's in my contract.
Of course.
Lakers lost a tough game against the Brooklyn Nets, but in their defense, nobody's healthy. No LeBron, no Jackson Hayes, no Rui Hachimura, who they're saying may miss another week. So let's talk
Luka
a little bit
also
about
dealing with back stiffness. Austin Reeves just coming back from injury. This is kind of a hobbled team right now.
Luka puts up 22, 12 rebounds, 12 assists. So his second triple-double as a Laker. But it's tough without LeBron. Like you see what that extra playmaker really does for this team.
Yeah, it's actually kind of similar to what we were talking about earlier with OKC, where Brooklyn just sent two to the ball every single time, either get the ball out of Luka's hands or Luka was forced into a really tough shot. He was forced into tons of bodies. And so you have the situation where he's kind of forcing it. He's not 100% and he's forcing it. But at the same time, the release valves aren't there for them to knock down shots either. Austin Reeves had a strugglesome night from the field, even though he got to his buckets from the free throw line. It was guys like Gabe Vincent knocking down shots tonight. They need Rui Hachimura. They need obviously LeBron James. It goes without saying they need LeBron James, but they need some guys around him who can make shots. That's probably the equation for the Lakers right now. This was a game that they, in their current shape, were supposed to lose, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, and they almost won it. Should mention that lost in the shuffle in all the Luka trade and thinking about LeBron being rejuvenated. Gabe Vincent looks great. And he has been, if you follow enough Lakers people and Lakers fans, I mean, he has been drawing their attention since he got there. And finally, I think he's showing exactly what they envisioned when they brought him out there. 6 of 9 from three. It's another defender, another ball handler, another guy who can shoot. Yeah.
This is a guy who helped lead the Heat to a conference finals and a finals run, right? Like that's the caliber of player they were expecting to get. Now injuries have really limited that aspect, but to your point about being a two-way guy, like knocking down shots, being able to be locked down at the point of attack. I think one of those things is he's incredibly scrappy, so he can kind of guard up and guard guys who might be a little bit bigger than him, which helps this Lakers team. And then the way that Gabe can be a guy in passing lanes and disruptive and cause deflections and force steals and whatnot, that's what this Lakers team wants to do on the defensive end, wreak havoc. He fits in perfectly. He's also JJ Redick is a big fan of Gabe Vincent. Like he shouts him out pretty much every post-game press conference he has.
They basically assembled the JJ Redick All-Stars is what it seems like. I saw a clip of JJ when he played with Jackson Hayes in New Orleans. And it's
Dorian Finney-Smith.
It's all these guys that JJ loves. It's funny how that worked out. Guys, before we go to break, if you're watching us on YouTube, hey, subscribe if you don't already. And if you're listening to this podcast, Spotify, iTunes, however you're getting the pod, go and leave us a 5-star review. If it's not a 5-star review, guess what? Don't bother. Anyway, guys, stick around after the break. Matt George is here. We're going to talk about the Kings getting blown out by the Knicks. And I want to know, what does a successful rest of the season look like for Sacramento? The Sacramento Kings are having what we can only describe as an up and down, but interesting season. Yep. Here to talk about them, and especially after just getting slapped by the Knicks last night, Matt George from ABC 10 in Sacramento, also the host of Locked On Kings. Matt, welcome to the show. Probably not a great start to this stretch of doom to lose on a Kawhi game winner and to lose like that to the Knicks.
Yeah, I'm staring out at the court inside the Golden One Center right now, and I can still see them cleaning the blood off of it from what the Knicks just did to the Sacramento Kings tonight. No, this is one of the most brutal stretches that you're going to get, right? And unfortunately, the Kings put themselves in a position where they have to win, especially these games at home, as many as possible, because back in December, when they had one of the easiest schedules in the league at the time and a super home-heavy schedule, they unfortunately lost 5 straight games at home, which ended up being the end of Mike Brown's tenure here in Sacramento. So it's a bed that they've only made for themselves. And look, that loss against the Clippers, there's so much good they did in that game. Same thing with the loss in Denver, right? 2 games where they were in full control for 3 to 3.5 quarters, but ultimately came up short, couldn't get the job done. And I think that's going to be kind of a representation of this season for the Sacramento Kings. There is a lot of good on this team. There's a ton of talent on this roster. It's the most talented roster the Kings have had since the early 2000s, right? Without a doubt.
Yeah.
but they keep just coming up short. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen once again. They'll be a play-in team. They'll come up just short of the playoffs, and they'll enter an offseason with a lot of questions to ask and likely no draft pick because their pick is top 12 protected heading to the Atlanta Hawks. Guys, right now it looks like that pick's going to be 13 or 14. So about the worst spot that they could be.
Oh, that's terrible. Okay, wait. I want to harness in on the good because we're gonna get into the bad and what's been happening with these lost leads. But there has been some good. Zach LaVine coming in has been awesome for this team, really scoring dynamically. And I think generally some of their additions, when it's Jake LaRavia, they've worked defensively to be a little bit better of a group. What is the good with this Kings team right now?
Well, the talent level, like I said, is at an all-time high. I mean, anytime you have DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, and I know Chicago knows this very well, but anytime you have guys like that on your roster, you have a chance. You're certainly going to be competitive. And it's no longer a question of can the Sacramento Kings be competitive. Now the question is, can the Sacramento Kings win more often than not? And they technically are, because they're hovering right above 500 and have pretty much been so since Doug Christie has taken over as interim head coach here in Sacramento. But hovering above 500 in the Western Conference is not good enough, not even close to good enough, right? And the Kings know that very well going back to last season. But getting back to your question, look, the good is if the game's close, they have some elite shot making. And I will say over the last week, now tonight's a bad night to talk about this after what the Knicks just did to them, but over the last week and some change, the Kings defense has suddenly come alive. Like suddenly they're playing really solid defense. And I mean, it's vaguely similar to the second half of last season where defensively the Kings showed tremendous improvement. They're doing it again down the stretch this time. Additions like Jonas Valanciunas and Jake LaRavia have been big, but like anything, when the Kings do something short term, you always look at it like with a narrowed, suspicious glance, like how real is this? So a lot of what the Sacramento Kings are trying to figure out is how real is what the good that they're doing right now.
Well, what's the bad? Like why, why can't they win games? Just not good enough.
I mean, how much time you got?
The floor is yours, my man.
Yeah, I mean, look, and Kings fans have actually gotten frustrated with me to a pretty significant degree over the last month, really since Mike Brown was fired. I'm just very pessimistic with this team, with the direction. I don't think there is a direction. I think they're short-term throwing themselves in a playoffs or bust position to where even if they make the playoffs, there's no belief that they'll really do anything there.
Right.
They are financially committed to players that they don't know if it's going to work out or not. I mean, Zach LaVine is one of the worst contracts in the NBA. Now, I like Zach a lot, but there's a reason why Chicago was trying so hard to get rid of him. And the Kings were, I guess, the one team that went, hey, we'll take him. So, I mean, he's paid almost $100 million over the next 2 seasons. Domantas Sabonis is a $40+ million per year player. Now, I'm a huge Sabonis supporter and believer. So I love Sabonis, and I believe Sabonis is undervalued and underappreciated around the league. I also know that if Domantas Sabonis is your number one guy, you're probably not very good. And I know people say, then why did you pay him $40+ million a year? Well, I felt the Kings were kind of in a position where they were forced to do that when you trade Tyrese Halliburton for him and you're trying to make things work. So, I just don't believe in what the Sacramento Kings are building because I don't see the vision. I don't know if there is a vision. I think it's it reminds me, this team, and they're starting to gel and figure each other out, which is good. But when they first put this team together, it felt like either someone was playing fantasy basketball, someone was using the trade machine on NBA 2K, or you just were watching a pickup game in the Drew League. A lot of really talented players that don't really make sense together, but many of them can go and get buckets.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah. I think that's
what they're banking on. Yeah, what they're banking on is, you give yourself a chance to win, especially play-in game, right? First round of the playoffs. If you've got 3 shot makers like they do, I understand it. It's just that it's DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Malik Monk, right? It's not Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. It's that next level down, and it's not enough, especially when the defense is, has the chance to fall off a cliff like it did last night.
And I mean, let's face the reality too. Like the ultimate success for this season is extremely short term. It's just make the playoffs, right? There is a playoff mandate here in Sacramento. Just get back there. And for a franchise that's only made the playoffs once in the last 17, 18 years, to some extent that's understandable. But the Kings tasted playoff success. Well, they tasted making the playoffs 2 years ago. And since that time have done absolutely nothing to build upon that. They went from having this exciting team, the birth of the beam, this young core. De'Aaron Fox comes out, has one of the best playoff debuts in history. I know Domantas Sabonis underperformed, but that was their first real full season together. You have all this momentum, and then you essentially sit on your hands for 2 years. The moves that the Kings did make were good moves. There just weren't enough of them, and they weren't timely. So now the Kings have made these plethora of moves. Unfortunately, a lot of them happened too late. I don't know why the Kings waited to get a player like Jonas Valanciunas or Jake LaRavia until after they fired Mike Brown, who's been asking for players like that and depth like that for over 2 years, because this was a problem even when the Kings did make the playoffs. So short term, there is a playoff mandate. This team is all about getting back to the playoffs. But y'all, they're going to get there in either 7th or 8th, which means OKC or LA or any of these teams that you'll be lucky not to be swept by. So really, where are you going? I just don't understand where the Sacramento Kings are going.
This sounds eerily similar to the Chicago Bulls.
Oh, does it?
And it's funny because they employ DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. And so it's just like you're going through the whole motions of just being mediocre in the Western Conference. I think one of the things that I'm curious about, and you said sort of the goal for this season, but what's the long-term goal in like, what do you think is what you would like to be the long-term goal for this Kings team moving forward?
See, I think as constructed, they're setting themselves up for best case scenario. I'm not saying likely scenario. I'm saying best case scenario. Right. This team is a Portland Trailblazers perennial playoff exit team. Which again, you sell that short term to Kings fans. They're like, hell yeah, I'll make the playoffs 4 years in a row. I don't care. But again, we tasted 1 year of the playoffs and frustration of not building upon it. So imagine 4 years of being a first round playoff exit until DeMar DeRozan rides off into the sunset and you're finally off Zach LaVine's money or whatever, right? Like that. Like this is what the Kings are setting themselves up for. Like there is no long term vision. I don't know what the long-term vision is.
It's lost, yeah.
They got old, too. Like, they got way older in the last 3 years. You know, this was a young and up-and-coming team.
Right. How they play is completely flipped. And I called them an old team, and I actually didn't mean it in any kind of negative way. They're not as reliant on the fast break, even though Doug Christie wants them to run more. They're definitely more half-court isolation offensive heavy, which it's worked at times, but didn't work tonight against a team like New York that you go ISO against them. They're like, please come on in. Right. It's not going to always work, especially in the playoffs. There are going to be concerns about it. Defensively, they've gotten more solid and they've added physicality with guys like Valanciunas and LaRavia. But again, how you're talking minor tweaks and minor differences to an ultimately like this team is nowhere near any sort of contention, which is what you were hoping to. Mike Brown always talked about going from bad to good is easy. Going from good to great is extremely difficult. And the Kings tried and failed for a season and a half to go from good to great. And then Mike Brown ended up losing his job because of it for some reason. So, I mean, here you are in a position, and I don't blame Doug Christie, by the way. I think Doug Christie has inherited the analogy he used after tonight's game I thought was really fitting. He said, we're an airplane that's in the air and trying to fix it while we're in the air, right? Like that's what there's no time to figure this out. It's not November where we're like, oh, at least the team's gelling. No, it's March and you got to do it now. And you have Cleveland, you have Memphis, you have Boston and OKC coming into your building here over the next couple of weeks. Hey, good luck figuring that out.
Are they going to make the play-in?
Yes, I think they'll make the play-in.
Okay. I mean, listen, this is a brutal stretch they've got coming up.
It is a tough schedule. Yeah.
And the Mavericks are not laying down.
No.
You know, they won last night. The Suns, it does appear, I mean, they don't have anything else to play for but the play-in. So it's not guaranteed that Sacramento is just going to coast to the play-in even. I personally think they've got enough talent and that Dallas doesn't. Yeah. So they will be able to hold off. But
But Dave, you might get to a point, a crossroads. Let's say you get out of this stretch and you're barely holding on to that 10th seed. Now you're at a crossroads where you have to look at, do I want to lose my draft pick to Atlanta in the Kevin Huerter deal? And Kevin Huerter is no longer on this team. Do you want to lose that pick and go into an offseason where you have to make changes? And one of the easiest ways to make a change is to draft a player. Like, not that a 12th overall pick is going to bring Sacramento a star, but hey, it gives them a shot better than nothing. So I think there might be a crossroads decision coming, but I already know what the decision is going to be. The decision is going to be going for it because The Kings have raised ticket prices and they continue to raise ticket prices, right? And there is an expectation from ownership, from the organization, from the fan base of winning in playoff contention. And rebuild might be the right path that they might begin to explore this summer, but rebuild is the path that nobody wants to hear about or talk about after only one season of playoff success.
Yeah, I can understand that. That's hard to reconcile with because of the playoff drought, and just tasting that little bit of playoff success has now got everybody bought in on trying to continue this thing and keep it going. I don't hate that whatsoever. It's just that the process behind it is what's failing. And that's the tough part of this.
It's a fumble.
Hey, let me ask you this. Sabonis on the team next year?
Yes, I think he is. Even if Domantas Sabonis wants out. And what's funny is the plate is being set for Sabonis to go through the exact same thing that De'Aaron Fox went through.
Right.
De'Aaron Fox tied his future with the Sacramento Kings to head coach Mike Brown. He gave a mandate to the Sacramento Kings and said, I will not play for another coach because I've already played for 4 of them here in my tenure here in Sacramento. I'm not going through that again. I'm certainly not re-signing the prime years of my career here when I don't know who my head coach is going to be, and we're going to start this carousel all over again. So he's putting that attachment to Mike Brown. They fire Mike Brown. De'Aaron Fox is forced to answer for it when they don't do a press conference, which was absolutely ridiculous. And then we got to where we got with De'Aaron Fox. Now you have Domantas Sabonis, who is super close with Doug Christie. Doug was Sabonis' developmental coach. Doug was working with Sabonis every day during the summer. Doug was down there when Sabonis and DeRozan met up at USC to work together during the offseason, right? Doug and Sabonis are very, very connected. The Kings are going into an offseason with an interim head coach who's very popular here in Sacramento. But, guys, if they want to change their front office, and that's a direction that I think this team should go in, I think they do need a fresh start with this front office who just hasn't gotten the job done, then you're now looking at a position where you're forcing your new front office to keep this coach or hire this coach. Guys, that would be the 3rd time in the Vivek Ranadive era that the Kings have done this. Vivek hired Mike Malone before hiring Pete D'Alessandro. How'd that play out? When Monty McNair, the current GM for the Sacramento Kings, took over, Luke Walton was the head coach of the Kings. Monty recommitted to Luke Walton, fired him 2 months later. Now Monty gives Mike Brown an extension during the offseason, fires him 2 months into the regular season, right? This is a pattern that keeps continuing. So we don't know if you want to go through that again with Doug Christie. And Domantas Sabonis might be looking at it going, I don't want to play for anybody else but Doug Christie. But at the same time, Domas, you're paid over $40 million a year, my guy. That is not an easy contract to move. He absolutely has value, but I don't know what you can get.
You know how at the end of Scooby-Doo, every episode, the bad guy pulls off the mask, it's like, oh, it was old man Withers or whatever. It's Vivek Ranadive every single time. Matt George, check him out on Locked On Kings. I think it's going to be must listen during this stretch of doom. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us. That's going to do it for the show, folks. For Matt and Es Baraheni, I'm Dave DuFour. The Kangs are back. This was the NBA Daily. Thanks for waking up with us.